Hey there. In this video, we're going to talk through containers and everything about how to use containers in your Beacon account. So first, let's navigate to the inventory section, go to all inventory, and we'll flip to the containers filter. Here you can view all of your containers. So containers are distinct from devices because they are not sellable. That's the first difference I'd like to point out. The second difference is that they hold inventory. That's their main purpose. So when you go into a container, they'll have a section down at the bottom called devices. That'll show you all the devices that are in the container. Every time a container gets transferred, all of the devices in the container get moved as well. There are some other interesting behaviors that a container has that pertains to the devices within it, such as being able to update the location of the container. If you go to the additional information section, you can see that you can actually update the location for the container. Updating the location here will change that location for all the devices that are inside the container. So it has a cascading, propagating effect. So that's a really useful way to update locations for a lot of devices at once. Also just demonstrating that there's this relationship between the container and the devices within it, that, wherever the container is, so are the devices. Whatever the status of the container generally, pertains to the devices as well. Another notable thing about containers is bills of materials. So as inventory gets used from a tray and the tray needs to be restocked, one way you can manage this is by assigning a bill of materials, which you can do up here at the top in the bill of materials field. The bill of materials is a template you can use to govern what should go in this tray. And when you assign that bill of materials, it opens up this bill of materials section down at the bottom that shows you how many should be there versus how many actually are. And then it labels for you whether you have shortages or excesses and assists you in fixing those gaps. So this is a really helpful way to make sure your trays stay stocked. It's also a helpful way to manage custom trays. So if you have a tray that's going to be going to a surgeon who likes to receive a different configuration of devices than is normal, a bill of materials can help you manage that and then stock the tray to that surgeon's preferences. I also want to point out here we have an inspection history and check-in history section. This inspection history section will allow you to make sure that your inventory is being regularly reviewed and checked to make sure it's still in good working condition. And you can set this up by turning that toggle on and then setting your first inspection date, and then what the frequency of inspection should be after that first inspection date. And then whenever an inspection is recorded, there is a new timestamp recorded as well with any comments made about that inspection. Also, when inventory in containers is returning from the field, it can be helpful to do a check-in. So if you open up the check-in area, you can click the Begin Check-in button and do a full check of the container and make a record in the container's history. So did it pass or fail? If these fail, the container may then receive a red or yellow flag, meaning that it won't be able to be used until those flags are resolved. You can also upload files pertaining to the check-in. So this is a really important way of making sure that trays are ready for surgery. And when they come back from the field, don't need any special attention or maintenance, after being used. Another feature that I want to point out pertaining to containers is reserving containers. You can reserve containers for an upcoming event and then view them in a calendar view of any of those upcoming events. Another important thing to point out about containers is that they also need catalog records. So if you navigate to the catalog, you can see here that any container has a unique catalog record with its own catalog number. So that's slightly different than how devices work. Every container needs their own unique catalog number, and you can create that here in the catalog by clicking New Catalog Item and filling it out just like you would any other device. But it's a good idea to set up these catalog records for your containers before you create your inventory, because then you can very easily load that inventory into the containers, and then you can make sure that the container catalog records are set up the way you want them to be your source of truth for that container going forward.